literally is just summarising what a form linear is. So from the tide form linear that we did, can you remember anything that you did in the tide form linear, the important things?
3, 5, 8.
3, 5 and 8. Okay, anything else?
Negative space.
Negative space.
Silhouette.
Silhouettes, good.
Friends, not lovers.
Friends, not lovers. Shape, what about shape? Lines, it's very parallel, this as well in level 3. Symmetrical or asymmetrical? Asymmetrical, okay. So this just summarises, it says, this design style places emphasis on highlighting the individual components used to create a floral design. So it's the individual shapes of the flowers, shapes, yeah? Materials are used singly or in reduced amounts because of their strong outline shape, silhouette, or to emphasise the strong linear expression. The use of transitional material is minimised, so you don't have loads of foliage and stuff, in order to ensure that the impact of the individual forms and lines are dominant. Okay, so for example, foliage can be removed from the stem to exaggerate the linear movement. So you could, what they're saying is obviously take off these bits. On a lily, when you were making a design, somebody stripped the leaves off the lily because it takes your eye off of the lily. Yeah? The use of positive and negative space is important to create the dominance and allow each individual form and line to be clearly seen. So on the second page is a slight diagram that will help you when you're creating this. Okay? So it's about the 3, 5 and 8. So the 8 is the most dominant group, so it's the tallest usually. The 5 is the contrasting group, which is the one that's like on his own. And then the 3 is what they call a dominant, subdominant group. So he is like the little friend to the 8 group, yeah, the 3. So if you look at this arrangement, what would you imagine the point of growth is with the design? Does that make sense when I say point of growth?
Is that where it's come? Is that the bit of the base?
Point of growth, yep. So it's when the stems meet. Do the stems meet in that arrangement in the same place?
No, it's slower.
So it's below the container, isn't it? So if you see them stems going all the way down, eventually, if I draw a line going all the way down, eventually there's going to be a point where they're going to meet, which is about here. And it's actually called below the container, so that's the point of growth. Sometimes it's above the container, sometimes it's in the container, sometimes it's to the side of the container, which is what you explore when you go into the high levels. So the point of growth is very radial, and it will eventually meet at one point, but not maybe at the point in the container. It will be down the bottom somewhere, so you have to sort of imagine it, okay? So I'm going to do a smaller version, but you have got the bigger containers if you want to do something dramatic with your anthurium leaf and your lilies and your anthuriums and things like that. It has to be in a non-traditional medium. So this is used with sand, and you can compress the sand actually, because I was saying to Claire, it's quite damp. So if you compress that, that probably would hold your flowers there. But it has to be more of a non-tradition. And this is actually quite nice with the colours. I sort of pick those as well. You can make it distinctive, so I've got a selection of pebbles as well. And that could be used.
Have you got foam under the sun?
I have got foam under there. I can't really answer the question, can I? A little bit. Right, height-wise, okay? I'm going to do my 8 first. I'm going to use these. I'm going to look at the shape. Where would we do height? Would you say there? Would you say there?
In the middle.
There?
Yeah.
The width of that container. So if we in agreements about here?
Yeah.
Okay, so that roughly 1, 2, and back to the centre, about 2 and, 2.5, because by the time I push it in as well into the sand, about 2.5. Yeah? With calla lilies into things like this, it's better to cut straight across rather than at an angle, because they do have a tendency to go quite squidgy. So remember, the point of growth is below the container. Okay, so this is going to be my 8.
You'll do it to one side and off the centre, just off centre.
Okay, now I've got to look at that silhouette. See the silhouette of that calla leaf going like this. And what I don't want to do is that, because that just distorts it straight away. This has got a lovely curve, but actually this doesn't actually have a curve. So I'm just going to try and straighten it a little bit. Okay, and follow the curve. Now, it has to be a parallel line, so the parallel lines have to be your stems. Yeah? Can be a slightly bit shorter if you wanted to, but usually it's similar height. Think of the parallel line like a train track. Remember, they can't touch. You could use the contorted willow as well, the Salix, yeah? It's the only thing with the sand, it does move, so sometimes we can use the pebbles to hold it as well. Not quite parallel, because that one's still got that curve. Oops. The thing of working with the foams and things is you get more control. The hand tied it's a lot harder, and the wide obviously you've experienced. So I'm going to use my carnation as my 5 group. Now, would you suggest I use 2 carnations, 1 carnation? Bear in mind I'm thinking of using this as a 3.
2.
2. Yeah? If I use 1, that's probably a little bit more controlling than this one. Okay? Asymmetrical. So this one, remember that negative space. I'm going to create the space here. So this is going to come out. It's got to be asymmetrical, yeah? And remember, you want a nice, decent gap. The thing is with these containers, they're quite shallow, so you have to be careful.
So it's form linear, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a rectangle.
It's more of an asymmetrical triangle. So this is your longer bit, and my 3 is going to be here.
Oh, yes.
Slightly more. So if I draw the circle, if I draw here, it's got to be like that. So this is 8, this is your 5, and this is your 3. So the distance there is less than the distance between that one and that one. Yeah?
I always thought of it differently. I was thinking of it in figures.
It's actually the impact, the visual impact of each group, rather than actually a number. So obviously 8 is greater than 5 and 5 is greater than 3. That's how you need to think about it. It's the visual impact.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's got to be as parallel as possible. The only thing I don't like about this carnation, it's got a slight curve to it, whereas this one hasn't. It's really important the material you choose. Also, you have to respect the stem. Okay, you can obviously see the stem there, but this 3 group, you've still got to have some stem. You don't want to bury it down the bottom, yeah? And I need to see which way my direction's going. It's quite a nice one here. So I want to respect that stem. Now, he's the little dog, remember, to the 8. So the actual space is not as much with this one. Trying to get into a little bit of a race into sand.
Floral sand.
These leaves are lovely, but they've got a tendency to move a little bit. Okay, so he's like going off, and it's sort of coming here. So then this is that, and then that. That's that bit, and that's that bit, and that's that bit. Over.
So
Now,
if you were to put 3 slightly to the back, where would you put 5?
if I was to put
3 slightly to the back.
here, you could, but then that becomes, it's the opposite side. So that would just be that there, and then drawing it up like that. You could do that as well. And then what you can do is use decorative material just to focus your little areas. Don't just like dot them in different places, yeah? You use them really to sort of create a sort of rhythm and movement. So you might want to put the greater amount here. And then maybe the smaller amount here, just to draw the eye over to this side. And you can slightly push them in a bit. Yeah. And that's really all a form linear arrangement is. Have to make sure you clean your medium.
35 minutes.
35 minutes, so it's quite generous.
What is it there?
Yes,
Oh,
it will be an assessment. Yeah. So it's just having that nice, this space here, rhythm with the pebbles, and having a clear group of the 3, 5 and 8, and parallel lines. It's very important to have parallel lines. Yeah? So if I turn it around, that's the sort of look I was seeing it at. Which might be slightly different, because you were seeing the back really, Marcia, wasn't you? Yeah? Anyone got any questions? It's quite straightforward, but I mean, have a go doing a bigger version as well. This, when would this be suitable in the industry? What sort of setting?
It's quite minimalist, isn't it?
It's very minimalist, yeah. Yeah, reception possibly area, somewhere very minimal,
Ultra modern and kind of.
really modern, yeah. But actually, tropical flowers would look really good in this style, because that's what you tend to do with tropical, is keep them modern. So that's why that would be quite effective.
Because you're just showcasing the flower then, aren't you? It's just
Yes.
you're saying, look at me.
That's right. This is very similar, which Carol mentioned yesterday about the Ikebana flower designs. It's got a very similar sort of style to the Japanese floristry, if you have a look. You can also create that sort of curve as well, if you wanted to in there. So if you had something taller, you could actually curve your material. So you're actually creating a sort of this shape as well. But as long as if you do a curve, then the silhouette has to flow the same. See, I was looking at these, but they look a bit big. But I suppose if you found one that's decent, you could use it as that angle, in that way, and work with the curve.
But then how would you, so would your little dog, would that be, I mean, how would you continue that through then?
Well, if it probably would be a bit too much for it. It'd have to be a smaller version of that ivy. I don't really like it because it flops, but you want one that's a bit more. So that would be your 3, a bit smaller, and that would be your 3, your subgroup. So it's curving him as well, or this type of material. But again, you have to look at what the shape of it. You don't want it to distort from this. You'd have to find a nice piece. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to come back with feedback on the task days, and then you can start practicing this.